Late one night, I received an unexpected message from my boss. It was not the usual work-related inquiry. Instead, it was something entirely different, something that left me speechless. "I need you to meet me," the message read, and my heart raced. My mind struggled to process the words. We had always maintained a strictly professional relationship, yet in that moment I could not ignore the heavy anticipation building inside me. Was this the opportunity one had been waiting for, or was this a line that once crossed would change everything forever? The clock read 11:30 p.m. when the message came through. My phone buzzed on the side of my bed, lighting up in the dark room. I had been staring at the ceiling, thoughts spinning around in circles, unable to sleep. Work had been stressful lately, and my mind seemed to have no rest from the demands of the office. But this message, this unexpected and mysterious message, changed everything. It was from my boss, a woman I had worked under for years. She was older, in her early 50s, but there was a grace about her that made her incredibly attractive. We'd never crossed personal boundaries, and I had always respected that professional distance. Yet as I read the message, I felt an unexpected flutter in my chest. She had written, "I need you to meet me." The simplicity of the message was almost chilling. What did she want? It was not like her to reach out after hours, especially not for something outside of work. I stared at the phone screen for what seemed like an eternity, the words slowly sinking in. I tried to tell myself it was just a work-related issue that couldn't wait. But a part of me deep down knew this was different. I had worked with her long enough to know when something wasn't quite right. Her messages usually came with a level of formality, but this one was different. There was no professional tone, no politeness. The words seemed to carry something unspoken, something that was pulling me in, drawing me closer to whatever awaited. I had a choice: ignore it and go back to my restless sleep, or respond and face whatever consequences came with it. My curiosity went out, and I quickly typed a reply. "What's this about?" I hit send before I could think twice. My hands trembled slightly, an unfamiliar excitement coursing through me. I had worked hard for this job, built a reputation for myself, and now here I was, unsure whether this was an opportunity or a dangerous invitation. The phone buzzed again almost immediately. She had replied, "It's important. Come to the office. I will be waiting." It was clear she wanted to keep it private. Something about this didn't sit right with me, yet another part of me couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. There was a chance, just a chance, that this was something more than just work, more than what I had ever imagined with her. And yet, the thought of going to her, especially this late, felt like crossing a line I never thought I'd cross. I stood up from the bed, walking toward the mirror. My reflection seemed almost unfamiliar in the dim light. I hadn't planned on seeing anyone tonight. I hadn't planned on being seen by her, but the urgency in her words had changed everything. The office was only a short drive away, but it felt like miles as my heart pounded louder with every passing second. I quickly changed into something simple yet polished. Black slacks, a fitted blouse, and a blazer. I didn't want to overthink it. After all, this was work. It was always about maintaining professionalism. That was the line I had never crossed. But tonight I couldn't help but wonder if it would be. As I drove to the office, my thoughts were scattered. Could this be a test of some sort? I had always admired her strength and poise, but there was something about her that always made me feel captivated. She never gave anything away. Her emotions were carefully guarded. But tonight, as I neared the building, I wondered if this time would be different. If tonight I would see something more, something beyond the professional mask she always wore. The office was dark when I arrived. The usual buzz of activity had long since faded, leaving behind an eerie quiet. I hesitated for a moment before making my way to her office. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see her silhouette inside. She was standing by the window, looking out into the city. The soft glow of the streetlights outside highlighted the contours of her face, the curve of her neck, and the elegance in her posture. She seemed lost in thought, but I knew better than to assume. She had always been guarded, always in control. "Come in," she called softly, her voice carrying a certain depth, a warmth that I had never heard before. I stepped inside, my heart beating faster. As I closed the door behind me, I felt the weight of the moment settle over me. This was no longer just a work-related issue. This was something more. I could feel it in the air between us. The tension was palpable. And for the first time, I wondered if I had been brought here for more than just business. The moment I walked into her office, everything around me seemed to shift. The air was heavier, charged with something I couldn't quite explain. My boss Claire stood by the window, her posture flawless, but there was something in the way she held herself that felt different. Her usual confidence had given way to an almost palpable tension. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw a vulnerability in her that I hadn't noticed before. "Close the door," she said, her voice quiet but firm. The authority in her tone was still there, but it was softened by something else. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I hesitated for just a second before I did as she asked, the sound of the door clicking shut echoing in the quiet room. As I stood there unsure of what to do next, Claire finally turned toward me. She took a few steps, her movements deliberate, her eyes never leaving mine. I could feel the heat of her gaze, but it wasn't the usual professional intensity. There was something else behind her eyes, something that stirred a deep curiosity in me. Her lips parted, and for a moment she seemed lost for words. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," she said softly. "I didn't want to ask you, but I couldn't stop myself." I felt a wave of confusion and desire wash over me. Her words, her tone. Everything was different from the way she usually spoke. It felt intimate, like she was revealing a part of herself that she had kept hidden from everyone. For a second I wondered if I had misread the situation. But the way she was looking at me made it clear that this was not a misunderstanding. There was something more going on here. "Claire," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What is this? What do you want from me?" She stepped closer, so close now that I could feel her breath on my skin. I could smell the faint scent of her perfume, a mixture of jasmine and vanilla that seemed to envelop me. She was standing right in front of me, her presence overwhelming. And yet I couldn't step back. My body felt frozen in place, every nerve alert tingling with anticipation. She reached out and gently placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through me. Her fingers traced the fabric of my shirt, slowly, deliberately, as if she was trying to memorize the feel of me under her touch. I looked up at her, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "I've been thinking about this about you," she confessed, her voice low, almost as if she was speaking to herself more than to me. "For a long time now, but I've always been so careful, so controlled. I couldn't let myself." She trailed off, her hand moving from my shoulder to my jaw, her fingers lightly grazing my skin. Her touch was gentle, almost tender, but it carried an undeniable weight. It was as if she was giving me permission to cross a line that we both knew should remain uncrossed. The tension in the room was suffocating, and yet I couldn't move. I couldn't escape her pull. "Claire, are you saying—" My voice faltered, but she placed a finger on my lips, silencing me. "Sure," she whispered. "I don't want to say it out loud." "Not yet. I just want you to feel it." Before I could respond, she leaned in closer, her face inches from mine. I could feel her breath against my lips, soft and warm. Her eyes searched mine, looking for something, perhaps reassurance, or maybe just confirmation that I wanted this as much as she did. And in that moment, I realized I did. Every part of me, every fiber of my being was drawn to her. Without thinking, I closed the distance between us. My lips found hers in a kiss that was slow, tentative at first, as if we were both unsure whether to take that final step. But as the kiss deepened, the tension that had been building between us for so long seemed to snap. The floodgates opened, and what had been a simmering attraction for so long finally boiled over into something undeniable. Her hands moved to my back, pulling me closer, her body pressing against mine. I could feel the heat of her, the urgency in her touch, as if she couldn't wait any longer. It was as if we were both fighting to keep our composure, but we were losing the battle. Claire broke the kiss and looked at me, her breath ragged. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. I nodded, my own heart racing. I had never been more sure of anything in my life. This was happening. There was no turning back now. Without another word, she pulled me closer, guiding me toward the desk in the center of the room. The space between us seemed to shrink with every step. Her hands worked quickly unbuttoning my shirt, her touch eager yet careful, as if she was savoring every moment. I could feel her hands, her lips everywhere, and it was as if every touch was a promise, a declaration of everything we had both been holding back for so long. As our bodies pressed closer together, the air around us seemed to grow thicker with every movement. The room, once filled with the sounds of the city outside, was now silent except for the sound of our breaths, shallow and quick. Claire's hands were no longer tentative. They were firm, purposeful, as though she was making up for all the time we had spent dancing around this moment, both of us unwilling to admit what had been building between us for so long. I could feel her heart racing, matching my own, and it made the moment even more intoxicating. Her lips were soft, urgent, but also careful, as if we both knew that this moment could either change everything or shatter what we had built. My mind was a blur, and yet I could not bring myself to stop. I did not want to stop. She broke the kiss again, pulling away just enough to look at me, her deep hazel eyes searching mine. There was something there, something vulnerable and open that I had not seen before. She was always in control, always the one who held the power. But now, I saw her in a different light. I never thought it would be like this, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I thought I could control this. Keep it professional. Keep it apart. But with you, her words trailed off. But I understood. I understood better than anyone else could. There was so much between us, so many unspoken emotions that had been hidden beneath the surface. But now, with the heat of our bodies close, everything was laid bare, raw and vulnerable. Claire, I said, my voice trembling slightly. We do not have to do this. If this is going too far, we can stop. We can go back to how things were. I had to say it. I had to give her a way out because I knew how much she valued control. She had built her career, her life on the foundation of control, of being untouchable. But now I could see the cracks, the moment of weakness that we both shared. She shook her head, her eyes locking with mine. No, she said, her voice barely audible. I do not want to go back. I do not want to stop. Her hands were at my chest again, pulling me closer, and I could feel the desperation in her touch. It was not just physical, it was emotional too. She was opening herself up in ways she never had before. This was more than just a physical attraction. This was about everything we had both been too afraid to acknowledge until now. I could feel the tension in the room shift. It was not just about the heat of our bodies anymore. It was about the trust that had been forged over months of working together. The moments when we had shared a look, a smile, a moment of silence that spoke volumes. All of that was coming to a head now, and I could not deny that it was changing us, shifting something in the way we saw each other. Claire, I said again, my voice barely a whisper. Are you sure about this? She closed the space between us, her hands moving to my face, her fingers brushing over my cheek. The intimacy of the gesture took me by surprise. It was not just physical. There was something more in the way she touched me. Something soft and tender, as though she was grounding herself, reminding herself that I was real, that this moment was real. I have never been more sure of anything in my life, she said, her voice barely audible, and then, as if to seal the moment, she kissed me again. This time the kiss was different. It was not desperate. It was not full of the raw need that had characterized our previous kiss. This one was slow, tender, and full of emotion. It was as though she was pouring everything into that kiss. The fear, the desire, the vulnerability, and the unspoken emotions that had been building between us for so long. Her hands found their way to the back of my neck, pulling me deeper into the kiss, her body pressing against mine with an intensity that left me breathless. There was no more space between us. We were tangled in each other, our hearts beating in unison, as though the world outside no longer mattered. The tension between us was palpable, but it was different now. It was not the nervous tension that had first filled the room when we had walked in. It was a tension that came from the depth of our emotions, the realization that what we were doing was far more than just physical. It was the culmination of everything we had been dancing around, everything we had been afraid to acknowledge. Claire's lips trailed down to my neck, her breath hot against my skin, sending shivers down my spine. My body responded to her every touch, every movement. But it was not just physical anymore. It was emotional too. There was something between us that could not be ignored, something that would change everything, and we both knew it. I closed my eyes, savoring the moment, but also realizing that this was the point of no return. There was no going back after this. The world outside might not understand, might never understand, but what mattered now was the connection we shared in this room, in this moment. I wanted her. I wanted everything that came with her, all the complexity, the passion, the vulnerability, and I was not going to pull away from it. Not now. Not when we were so close to the edge. Heavy with tension now, seems still peaceful even. Claire sat back, her gaze soft, but full of something I could not quite place. Perhaps relief, perhaps something deeper. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, her emotions evident even in the stillness. I reached out, brushing a lock of hair away from her face, my fingers gently caressing her skin. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental in its simplicity. The connection between us, once unspoken and filled with unacknowledged desire, was now something we had both confronted. "We should not have done this," Claire murmured, her voice steady but carrying a depth of emotion that was hard to ignore. There was a pause as we both processed the gravity of our actions, but when she looked at me, her eyes no longer filled with the same wall she had once put up. I knew she did not regret it. We were both changed, and perhaps in the end that was what mattered the most. "We can figure this out," I said softly, offering her the reassurance I knew she needed together. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that comes when two people who have shared something profound are not ready to speak of it just yet. Instead, we sat there quietly in the afterglow of what had been an unexpected yet inevitable moment. Looking back, I still wonder, was it loyalty that made me say yes, or fear of disappointing someone in power? Some people might say I crossed a line by getting involved. Others might argue that when your boss needs help, it's your job to step up no matter the hour. But one thing's for sure, that midnight decision left a mark I'll never forget. Do you think I made the right choice? Or should I have walked away? Follow me so I can stay motivated to create more powerful stories like this. Or encourage me by pressing the number 1.